Hi everybody, John back again. Last night I watched quite an interesting video by Roswell Ryan, who's another BC record collector, music enthusiast in Wales. So I thought I'd pick up on what he was talking about. He spoke about an album which he was sort of suggesting is probably the best debut album ever made. He was quite quick and quite clear to underline this is his opinion. Doesn't want any angry emails. And then I'll say the same. Just as a follow-up to his video, I'm going to show a record which I would like to suggest is perhaps probably the best debut album ever made. But it's my opinion. I don't want sort of angry messages by people saying no, it's not that one at all, it's this one. Anyway, so the album that I'm going to show is not necessarily perhaps the most well, it's not well known at all, really, not really. It would be easy to choose something like Never Mind the Bollocks by the Sex Pistols, for instance, but I thought it might be quite fun just to pick something a little bit less field, and also something that maybe Ryan himself might be interested to hear. So I'm going to propose this album. This is Hybris by Anglagård. Anglagård are a Swedish progressive rock band, and they sort of got together and sort of were making music in the very early 90s, which is a strange time for progressive rock, isn't it? Because, you know, we often think of the golden age of progressive rock during the sort of the early parts of the 70s. We think of those albums that were still sort of clinging on to it, albeit, you know, with a lot of difficulty in the latter part of the 70s. And then in the 80s, there was this rise of the sort of the neo-prog bands, like Marillion and IQ, which were great, but you know, they weren't really. They were a slightly different breed, I think, to sort of what we know as being progressive rock. But Anglagård built a lot on music that I think they really enjoyed, they really liked, and they created this album. And to be honest with you, in my view, this is not only perhaps the best debut album ever, it's in many ways the best progressive rock album ever. I hold it in such high regard. I think if there's one problem with this album, and I think I've said this before, once you've heard this and once you've penetrated it, I mean, once you really got into it, because it's very complex, it's very intense. There's no slacking in this at all. It's sort of in your face prog right from word go. Once you've got through to it and it sort of absorbed it, nothing else quite matches up to it ever again. That's my experience anyway. I really like, the big names of prog. I like a lot of the smaller names of prog too, but if I listen to this too much, everything just pales in comparison. What is so special about this is the people that were doing it. I think, you know, in the band, some of the band members were just teenagers. The drummer was 17. One of the guitarists was 18. The rest of the band were a little bit older, sort of in their early 20s. But when you consider the profound music that they make on this album, it's incredible to think that they were as young as they were. You know, it sounds so mature. There's the musical themes are very, shall we say, well, you really got to kind of hear it to understand. There's a lot of beautiful melodies, but at no point is it ever sort of sweet and sickly. At no point is it twee. It's always sort of, it's always got you by the throat, I must say. And the instrumentation on this is just second to none. There's a little bit of vocals on it, not much. It's the guitarist Tord Lindemann who sings, and I've been fortunate enough to meet these three of the people from the band, and Tord Lindemann, the guy that played lead guitar on this, he told me that, you know, he's not really a singer. It was never meant that he should be the vocalist for the band. It's just that the situation arose, they needed someone to sing a few lines, so it turned out to be him. And yeah, there's not an awful lot of vocals on here, but what vocals are there I think are pretty good, all things considered. Yeah, anyway, so there you go, that's my suggestion for the best debut. What do they sound like? Well, you know, in terms of progressive rock, you can hear King Crimson, you can hear even a bit of Van der Graaf in there too. Yes is definitely, I think that Yes pretty much is always prominent in a lot of progressive rock music, but they don't try and be Yes like a lot of bands do. Instead, I think they draw a lot more on some of the more unusual acts that you don't hear about every day. Like, I'm thinking about Cathedral, stained glass windows. That's like an quite an obscure American progressive rock band from, I don't know which part of America, but from the late 70s, I think. Then there's Shylock, which is a French prog band. They were obviously very influential on this. I hear some SFF, sorry, which are a German sort of krautrock type band. I think they draw a lot from some of these more obscure bands. Another thing that's really important about this is what came out of it. Englagård haven't really made that many albums. They've made one after this, and then they finished with a live album, and then they quit. They've recently, in recent years, sort of reformed again on sort of small scale. But the most important thing is that a lot of what they call Scandi Prog really comes out of what this album did. It sort of gave a whole generation of young people that are interested in complex music a kick up the backside. I'm thinking of bands like Anekdoten. I'm thinking of bands like Landberg, Wobbler, Sinkadus. There's lots of really amazing, great progressive rock bands that come out of Scandinavia, and most of them, if not all of them, really do sort of lend or owe a debt of gratitude to this album, because I think it shines through each and all of them. I've seen people talk about this online and review it, so on and so forth, and they always make such a mess up of the names of the songs and the name of the band and the name of the album. So the album is called Hybris. Englagård. It's a lot of people mispronounce it as being Anglagard because they're not pronouncing the Swedish letters here. Englagård, it really sort of means, it translates directly to Angel's Land or Angel's Farm. The word gård in Swedish means farm, but I don't think it's meant to be Angel Farm. It's more Englagård. It's like the state of angels, or it's hard to sort of directly translate. First track is called Jordrök, which is a direct translation to earth smoke. The next track is called Vandringar I Vilset, which is sort of wandering around in confusion. The next track is called Ifrån klarhet till klarhet, so from clarity to clarity. and the last track on the official album is King Board, Kung Board. So that's, yeah, King, the Winter King, I suppose you might say. Yeah, sadly I've only got the CD of this album. They did release it on vinyl, but they didn't make very many copies for whatever reason, and now those copies go for, you know, I think it was a starting price. You wouldn't get one for less than about 350 quid, and yeah, you can pay as much as £1,000 for a copy of this album on vinyl. It's a bit out of my budget. Mind you, I always keep my eye out for a copy in the wild, but this far I haven't found one. But this one was, yeah, very nicely presented to me by members of the band on my 40th birthday, and they signed it for me there. So, although I don't have, can you see that? Although I don't have the original copy on vinyl, and they haven't ever reissued it on vinyl, sadly. Although I don't have a copy on vinyl, I have perhaps second to best, a signed copy given to me on CD, given to me by members of the band, which is absolutely wonderful. Okay, right, so I'm not going to talk any more about this. Go check it out. I will put some cards up for you to hopefully go and investigate some of the tracks on here. I hope you find it really interesting. Thanks very much, Ryan, for a great video that you gave. I've been listening to this morning, and there's a break in the rain, so I'm going to go out and take my dog for a walk while I can, and listen to this on my Walkman. Thanks very much, everybody. Check out my next video. Oh, and check out Ryan's. Bye.